Hello everyone. In this video, we will talk about how to implement CSS with HTML. So I already have my editor open with the base code, the HTML tags, the head tags and the body tags. So let's first see how this bare HTML code looks like. So the browser is opening. So this is how the code looks like right now. Now what is CSS? CSS, also known as Cascading Style Sheets, is a programming language just like HTML that adds styling to HTML code. There are two types of CSS. One is the inbuilt CSS and the other is the external CSS. Usually, depending on your needs, the external CSS is actually better than the inbuilt. Let's first start with the inbuilt CSS. So how do we add CSS? Well, we use the style tags. And inside the top style tag, we set the type equal to text/CSS. The reason we set this up is because CSS is not the only styling language. So as you can see, there's no difference because we didn't add anything. And now inside this style tags, what do? Well, there are several options that we can use. The most common option is the font family option. So I'll mention it. But before you do, we must specify under what area should the style take in effect. That is, should it come under the h1 tag, should it come under the head tag, should it come under the body tags, should it just come under everything? For now, I'll just choose the body tag. So inside, you'd have to write body and then an opening bracket and a closing bracket. And inside these two brackets, you'd mention your styling. So font family, a colon, a space, and then the font. I chose Arial, and then a semicolon. I reloaded the page and look at that. I'm not sure if you saw the difference, but if I zoom in, if I just remove this and reload, you can see that it has all these extra points on the letters. This is what Times Roman is, the default. And if I add the styling back, look, it's now a much neater font. This is what CSS is. Now actually, before HTML5, there was a language called HTML4. At the time HTML4 was around, CSS didn't exist. So to add styling, they used tags which was inbuilt to HTML. You can still use those tags, but they're not as recommended. So this is how inbuilt CSS works. So you add the style tags, mention the type in the top style tag, and then inside the tags you add your styling. Let me remove this. Now to use external CSS, you may have guessed that you would need an extra file. That file I'll be calling style.css. So how do you refer that CSS sheet to this HTML file? There's a piece of code that does this. You use the link tags inside the head tags. So in the link tags, you mention the reference, the file you're referencing, in this case style.css, the type of the file, the text, which we set as text/CSS, and the purpose of that file. If we don't mention this, it will just be imported and not used for anything. So for referencing what it does, we use the rel property. So rel equals to style sheet. If we reload, well, you can see that there's no effect because there is no styling. Anyways, let's add some styling. Inside the body tags, I'll just mention font family, the same properties, rel. Let's save and reload. There you go. It works. The reason we recommend using an external file rather than an embedded CSS is because if you need to make a change in, for example, the font family, and you have several HTML files, then you have to change every single HTML file. That is not good. It is redundant. So to avoid that, you can use an external file and you can only change in one place. It's like the variables concept in Python. Anyways, now that we know font family works, what other stylings are available? There are several of them. There are a lot. But I'll just talk about the most common ones. I'll paste all of these in the description if you want them. There is the font size option that sets how big should a font be. So inside the body tag, I'll set font size to, and now you have two options, either to mention it in pixels or percentage. If you're mentioning it in percentage, you can do something like this, 200 and then the percent symbol. If you're mentioning it in pixels, then you can use this syntax, 200 or any other number, followed by px. I'll first show the percentage. Let's reload. There you go. Just to make sure, I'll just reset back to 100% zoom. So this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like with this font size. And if I comment it, whoa, it goes back down. So this is what it does with font size of a percentage. For pixels, this is what it does. Oh my god. That's bigger than I expected. But you get the idea. That's what happens. And if you set it to 0 pixels, it will actually be invisible. You can't see anything. So that is how you use font size. I'll just set this back to 150%. Actually, no, I'll set it to 200. Okay, let's continue. There's also the color option. So for color, there are two ways you can specify a color. Either by using hexadecimal numbers or just using the letter names. For now, I'll just use a letter name. Let's set blue. Reload. Look at that. It's now blue. Actually, I'll just use cyan. There you go. Okay. Well, I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll just switch it back. But that's how you change the colors. Yes, red is good. The next option you have is background color. This also you can either use a hex or and color name. So background color, and I'll just set that to red. Okay, that was a bad idea. There you go. So we have red text on a cyan colored background. Now the reason it covers everything is because I mentioned this in the body tag, and because the body tag handles the website, it just made everything cyan. So that's how it happened. We also have opacity. For opacity, you can either choose a number between 0 and 1, where 0 is invisible and 1 is, well, actually no, 0 is no opacity and 1 is full opacity. Let's choose 0.5. There you go. This would also affect the background, but because the background is just nothing, it just affected only the text. So the text became a little dim. Let's choose 0.9. And now it is almost back to, well, its original color, but it's a little dull. And if I set the opacity back to 1, you have red. But if you set any bigger number higher than 1, you have no result. It's just nothing. It's like between 0 and 100%. For opacity, you can't have like bigger numbers. Just set it to 0.8. Okay. You also have the option of text align. So let's add text align. There are 4 options in text align: left, center, right, and justify. If you have used a word editing software, then you may know what all these 4 mean. So let's just try left. Left doesn't do anything because the text is already in the left. Now let's try center. The text came in the center of the visible range. And let's try right. And now it's on the right of the visible range. And let's try justify. Justify, well, this is actually a different formatting. It formats how paragraphs should look like. But it acts kind of the same as left, so you get the idea. Just set it to center. We also have height and width, but HTML already has tags for that, and also you can put that on text. We also have margin, margin top, margin bottom, margin left, margin right. Usually they use the margin top and left, but if necessary, the bottom and right is also used. Let's try the margin top option. Margin top. And let's set that to 100 pixels. There you go. It was at the center before, and now it's a little bit down. Let's choose 200 pixels. It's even more down. And what happens if you use margin bottom as well? I'll set this to 100 pixels. Nothing happens. Why? Because the margin top is in effect. If I comment out the margin top, then, well, it will just stay there because it can't go more up. By the way, if you want to make comments in CSS, then you use the // command. And also, the margin top, regardless of how much you zoom in or out, it will always stay at that distance. You also have border. Now, border is a complicated one, so I'll just explain it. For border, you have to specify how thick the border should be in pixels. Then you have to specify the type of the border. Most of the time we use solid. And then you have to specify the color if you want to. So for border, I'll specify it as 2 pixels. Then I'll specify solid and the color, which I'll choose green. Is that right? There you go. You may notice that apart from covering the text, it also covers the down. That is because the whole body has been mentioned. Because the whole body has been mentioned, it did it like that. And also, because we have that margin top in effect, it ignored this bit. If we didn't have it, it would just cover the entire thing. Okay. I can change the width of the border as I wish. And that's visible. But if you want, you can also specify this to other tags, not just the body tag. If I want to specify a font for specifically H1 tags, let's say I want for HTML for H1 tags to be completely lowercase regardless of what you give, I can use the text transform tags. And I'll specify lowercase. There you go. It was completely uppercase and now it's lowercase, even though I mentioned it right here to be uppercase. So that is how you use CSS with HTML. Oh, and by the way, before I go, before CSS came, to organize things, they usually used tables. But after CSS came, the options such as margin, top and bottom, they have replaced the old method. But that doesn't mean it still doesn't work. You can still use tables to organize the layout. But that is not recommended because with CSS you have more control, while with HTML you don't exactly have that full control, which is why CSS is recommended over HTML. The same applies for those style types in HTML which I mentioned before. So thank you for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.